This is a Local 15 special presentation. Hurricane Season 2016, Surviving the Storm. Howling winds, blinding rain, storm surge. Would you be ready if a hurricane was heading our way? This is a Local 15 News special presentation, Surviving the Storm.
It's that time of the year again. Hurricane Season 2016 is here. Hi, I'm Local 15 Chief Meteorologist Chris Dunn on board the USS Alabama.
And I'm meteorologist Kelly Foster on Dauphin Island. Over the next half hour, we'll let you and your family in on how you can prepare for this year's hurricane season.
And I'm meteorologist Jake Dunn in Gulf Shores. We'll also show you what it takes to track and forecast these storms and what kind of season we're expecting this year.
But first, let's take a look back at last year's hurricane season, which brought fewer than average storms to the Atlantic Basin. In 2015, there were 11 named storms, 4 of which became hurricanes, and 2 of those were considered major hurricanes, Category 3 or stronger. The first storm of the season last year was Tropical Storm Ana. It actually formed about a month before the start of the official season and became the earliest U.S. landfalling tropical system on record, striking South Carolina on May 10th. The only other storm to directly impact the U.S. was Tropical Storm Bill, which made landfall on the Texas coast in mid-June. All other tropical storms and hurricanes stayed out of the Gulf of Mexico, including Category 4 Hurricane Joaquin. That storm reached a peak in early October and was blamed for sinking the American cargo ship El Faro. Her 33 crew members were lost to the storm.
Every year along the Gulf Coast, we face a hurricane threat. So why here? Well, a lot of it has to do with that. Tropical storms and hurricanes get their energy from warm ocean water. How warm? The minimum temperature required to ignite a tropical system is roughly 80 degrees. The higher the temperature, the stronger the storm, assuming other favorable factors are present. To strengthen to their fullest potential, tropical cyclones need the atmosphere to rapidly cool with height. In addition to cooler upper-level temperatures, tropical storms and hurricanes require a light headwind, also known as wind shear. All tropical systems begin with an area of disturbed weather, usually a cluster of showers and storms. Once circulation is observed and winds are less than 38 miles per hour, the National Hurricane Center will label it as a tropical disturbance. When the winds climb above 39 miles per hour, the disturbance will become a named tropical storm. And if the winds exceed 74 miles per hour, the storm will be upgraded to a hurricane. The Saffir-Simpson scale divides hurricanes into 5 categories based on wind speed, pressure, and storm surge. The top 3 categories are considered major hurricanes, causing extensive to catastrophic damage.
The 2016 Atlantic hurricane season is forecast to be near average. Although we've made out unscathed for quite a while now, the hurricane hunters warn against complacency.
It's down in here. It just slides down here, and then once this goes down.
Hurricane hunters work under 24-hour continuous operations.
When we show up, we're literally hours away from having to launch aircraft into storm environments or to investigate what potentially are storms.
Hurricane hunters with the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron at Keesler are prepped and on standby for whenever the call comes from the National Hurricane Center, because their information is vital.
It's the ability to drop songs in the eye wall. And that has provided a wealth of data for the Hurricane Center for researchers to better predict what's going to happen, the intensity of storms, and that's been some of the major innovations in the last 10 to 15 years.
There are always 5 crew members for every hurricane hunter mission aboard the aircraft: the pilot, co-pilot, the drop-zone operator, and the weather officer. But NOAA has a smaller plane that's equally as important. Lieutenant Dave Cowan flies above and around the outside of the storm to help determine where the storm is going to go. It collects upper air data as well.
Essentially almost scan the storm like an x-ray, figure out sort of what's going on inside the storm, and then also venture out away from the storm and figure out how the other high pressures, low pressures, cold fronts, warm fronts, the different dynamics are going to change the storm's path.
While we all want the storms to stay away, the hurricane hunters say flying and investigating a storm is an experience like no other.
Kind of surreal because it looks very calm on top, but it's an interesting perspective because you know what's down below.
Although predictions indicate a near average Atlantic season, they say don't let your guard down no matter what.
The valuable data provided to us by the hurricane hunters actually helps us make a forecast. During the season, when we're tracking a storm, you'll often see something like this. It's called a spaghetti plot because the forecast tracks from all the computer models we use look like strands of spaghetti. This shows us the possible track of the center of the storm. The experts at the National Hurricane Center use a lot of the same data to come up with their official forecast track, which is depicted by a cone that fans out with time. That's because the farther out the forecast goes, the greater the uncertainty. So it could get very real if we are near or within the shaded area of the cone.
And when it becomes likely that our area will be affected by tropical storm or hurricane conditions, it's the National Hurricane Center that issues the watches and warnings. A watch goes up when tropical storm or hurricane conditions are possible within 48 hours. That gives us 2 days lead time to prepare. A warning is issued when tropical storm conditions are expected within 36 hours. That also goes for a hurricane warning because once the winds reach tropical storm strength, it becomes much more difficult to prepare for the worst of the storm.
If you are ordered to evacuate or you just don't feel safe staying in the area, here are some things you should consider ahead of time to be well prepared. First, figure out where you'll go. I know that seems pretty basic, but if a storm is approaching and you haven't thought about it, you may quickly run out of options. Anywhere away from the coast is typically your best option. Next, top off your vehicle's gas tank as early as you can because gas stations may be closed and unable to pump gas during power outages. Same with the ATMs at your local bank, so get as much cash as you think you'll need while you can. If you take any medications, make sure you have at least a 7-day supply. Leave early enough to avoid being trapped by severe weather and follow recommended evacuation routes. Do not take shortcuts, they may be blocked. If you don't have a car, plan how you'll leave if you have to. Make arrangements with family, friends, or your local government. If an evacuation is ordered, ALDOT has a plan to get as many people away from the coast as possible in short order. It's called Contraflow, where all lanes of I-65 will be northbound only. It starts from the intersection of State Route 225 in northern Baldwin County, running all the way north to Montgomery. Now, it won't happen with every hurricane, but when the plan is put into place, we'll let you know here on Local 15 News. One of the things you may have to leave behind is your boat. I know many of us here along the Gulf Coast have our own boats. And if you do, here's some things to consider. If you can pull your boat out of the water, do it. There are a number of local marinas and indoor boat storage facilities that offer excellent protection against a storm, but they can be pricey and may be filled up. If indoor storage is not an option, try to find a secure location on high ground, well above the projected storm surge. If you plan on leaving your boat in the water, double up on all mooring lines and make sure the batteries are fully charged so the automatic bilge pumps will be able to run for the duration of the storm.
When a hurricane warning is issued for your area, the best advice is always to evacuate. Now, we understand that isn't always an option for some. So if you decide to ride out the storm from home, here are some helpful hints that will help keep you as safe as possible. First and foremost, have a family disaster plan and supply kit. Your kit should include at least 1 gallon of water per person for 3 days, enough food for at least 3 days, and a first aid kit including medications and other essential items listed here. Next, make sure your home is ready to receive the full force of the storm. Board up windows and glass doors. Metal storm shades offer the best protection. Secure outdoor furniture or relocate it inside your home or garage. You will most likely lose power during the storm.
A generator was, you can't put money on it, to be honest with you.
But if that isn't an option, you still need to stay informed. Make sure you have a NOAA weather radio and an extra supply of batteries to keep it and other small electronic devices running throughout and in the wake of the storm. During the hurricane, do not venture outside. Remain in an interior room until the threat has passed. Don't use candles or open flames. Instead, have flashlights ready to be able to see in the dark. Once officials have given the all clear, be careful when heading out to assess the damage. Stay away from downed power lines and debris. Critters, including snakes and alligators, seeking refuge from high water may be hiding amongst the rubble. Also, plan ahead and make sure you have plenty of cash on hand, as electricity could be out for days, making electronic purchases impossible. And finally, remember to check in on your neighbors, especially the elderly that have decided to stay behind and ride out the storm as well.
Hurricane season is here, and humans aren't the only ones who need to have a plan in place. Pets should be storm ready as well. Plan your pet's evacuation before a hurricane threatens to ensure a smooth and safe process. Make sure your pet is vaccinated. Boarded pets need proof of current vaccinations. Work out where your pet will stay before there's a need to leave. Check with family and friends not in harm's way. Pet shelters and vet clinics, then work their drop-off into your evacuation route. Snap a new pic of your pet in case they get lost. Their collar needs proper ID on it as well. Prepare an emergency kit with the pet carrier identification, immunization records, food, water, their meds, and of course, a collar and leash.
Make sure your dog has a microchip. If the dog has a microchip, it will find its way back to you after any big storm. All the vets, all of the shelters, everything, they all have scanners. We look on the dog, we look for every dog that comes in that we don't know has an owner, and we check it for chips. If it's there, we look you up on the internet, give you a call on the phone, say we've got your dog. It's that simple.
Up next, new technology is constantly being developed and tested that could someday save your life in a major storm event.
Also, several businesses that are valuable to the port city line our waterways, becoming ground zero for tropical weather. How they are prepared.
Earlier in the program, we talked about hurricane watches and warnings, which cover all aspects of the tropical cyclones, but they fail to isolate the specific dangers. For example, there are currently no watch or warning products for storm surge. However, it's usually the most costly and deadly part of a hurricane. Last year, the National Hurricane Center began working on a prototype graphic that would highlight specific storm surge areas along the Atlantic and Gulf Coast. Unlike previous and current storm surge advisories, the new watches and warnings will take into account all types of flooding, from the ocean, rivers, sounds, and bays, tidal information, land elevation, and forecast uncertainties, including the size, speed, strength, and landfall location of the hurricane. Now, storm surge watches and warnings will remain in the experimental phase this season, with plans of going fully operational in 2017. Another storm surge product they're working on at the National Hurricane Center is the potential flooding map. Once a hurricane watch or warning is issued, the general public has access to higher resolution maps of their neighborhood. These maps will designate regions of low, moderate, high, and extreme flooding from storm surge based on the path, size, and strength of the hurricane. Now, the hope of the National Hurricane Center is that if people can physically see where their home is located and the potential ensuing danger, well, then they'll be more likely to evacuate to higher, safer ground.
Many Gulf Coast shipyards can batten down the hatches and get facilities secure in short order. There are mooring plans for ships and strategies in place for when a hurricane threatens our area. Austal USA, located right here in Mobile, Alabama, has thousands of employees and ships that cost several $100 million to build. Anytime a storm threatens, Austal monitors its path very closely.
Within 5 days of expected landfall, we will start making preliminary preparations. Within 3 days, we're really hunkering down and making preps. And by 24 hours out, we're in full severe storm mode, and everything is secured the way it would be to weather the storm.
Austal did recover quickly after Hurricane Katrina, but the company has had significant growth. Less than 1,000 employees then and 4,500 now.
Bigger ships and more facility, quite frankly, to handle it. So it's been a good evolution of where we've come from, and it's a good problem to have, but we need to put ourselves in the best position possible to withstand severe weather events, and that's a priority of ours as we move into hurricane season.
The manufacturing facility is designed to withstand the elements, but they don't want to put people at risk.
So if we were at a Category 1, maybe even Category 2 storm, we'd have people ride it out. Once you get to 3, 4 and beyond and you get to catastrophic levels, we don't want anybody in harm's way. Then we'll just hunker the ship down, tie it off best we can, and then evacuate everybody and then hope for the best.
Austal also works closely with the Navy when storms threaten to keep them in tune with their procedures.
We'll be on the ready through all of hurricane season, and then when it's over, we'll go back in the off season, reassess, and then be ready for the next one.
So what exactly is storm surge, and why is it so dangerous? We can see the winds of a hurricane swirling around the center of the storm. As it approaches land, that wind pushes the water towards shore. The worst storm surge is to the right of the eye. That's because all of the wind is blowing onshore, piling up the water. Low-lying areas near the coast can easily be flooded by the rapid rise in water levels, which can be made worse during times of high tide and wave action from the stormy conditions.
As we enter hurricane season, it's hard not to forget the devastation that's still felt on the Gulf Coast from Hurricane Katrina.
We've been closed since August the 29th when the storm came in, and it probably looks like it's going to be at least another probably 5 or 6 weeks before we can even minimally get back open.
Up next, I'll take you on a trip to the past and show you how some of our local landmarks have recovered from the storm. hard to believe it's been just over 10 years since one of the worst hurricanes in history hit the Gulf Coast. I remember what the causeway looked like after Katrina, and it's hard to believe how far we've come since that devastating blow. Hurricane Katrina destroyed the original Oyster House here on the causeway, along with many other businesses. But the good news is they're coming back. These are shots of the causeway after Hurricane Katrina in 2005, when I met up with the owner of the original Oyster House.
We're 2 miles east of the old location. Due to Hurricane Katrina, we moved out here about the second week in September. So actually we're going to be getting going again tomorrow, which will be about 7 weeks since we've been shut down.
Now 10 years later, business is booming and should stay thriving unless another Katrina cooks up in the Gulf.
It's better. I mean, we have a safer place here. We're much more protected from the elements because of our height, and so business is better.
Down the road, the USS Alabama felt the wrath of Katrina. Here's Bill Tunnell from 2005.
We've been closed since August the 29th when the storm came in, and it probably looks like it's going to be at least another probably 5 or 6 weeks before we can even minimally get back open.
Tunnell says they had about $7 million in damage, not counting airplane repair. Out of 24 planes, 4 were destroyed and 17 had major damage, and the ship definitely took a hit.
Worst damage was that the ship was left in an 8-degree list, which is like this. And of course, obviously, we can't open when people think it's an amusement ride. So it took us actually 9 months to level the ship back to where it was to start with, and $2.6 million.
But he says there have been a lot of positives from the storm.
To think after almost, at that point, 40 years of existence, we were able to basically redo our infrastructure. So, you know, life's good now.
Gas stations were shut down. Here's what I reported on back then. While some businesses along the causeway are reopening, it may take other businesses like this gas station a little bit longer to get back on its feet.
They had 2 gas stations on the causeway, and you can't get gas. You got to go to the other end of the causeway to get it.
Nowadays, businesses along the causeway are growing, but as the pictures and memories remind us, it takes just one bad storm for us to turn back the hands of time.
It's like a bomb went off in it. I mean, I can't imagine how the water has that much power, but Mother Nature rearranges the coast from time to time when these hurricanes hit.
During a weather emergency, keeping up with the latest forecast, watches, and warnings is a must. And doing so, well, it's simple. Download our Local 15 weather app by going to the App Store and searching for WPMI WX. You can also follow the weather team on social media by joining Chief Meteorologist Chris Dunn, Meteorologist Kelly Foster, or myself, Meteorologist Jake Dunn, on Facebook or Twitter. We'll keep you ahead of the storm whether you're at home or on the go.
Hurricane season isn't a short period of time. It spans from June to the end of November. Up next, why a quickly fading El Nino could give us a much different season than last year. Now that we've covered what you need to know to prepare for a hurricane, we look ahead to the forecast for the 2016 hurricane season.
Now, El Nino in the Pacific was responsible for a less active season in the Atlantic Basin last year. However, with El Nino conditions rapidly weakening, we're expecting around an average season this time around.
Forecasters from Colorado State University are forecasting 12 named tropical systems, 5 of which will become hurricanes and 2 of them major, Category 3 or stronger. That compares with the long-term averages of 12, 6, and 2.
As far as where those storms will hit is anyone's guess at this point, but CSU researchers give the Gulf Coast a 29% chance of a major hurricane landfall this season. The 100-year average is 30%.
And the official forecast from the Climate Prediction Center and the National Hurricane Center also shows around normal activity in the Atlantic Basin this year. No matter what happens this hurricane season, you can depend on us to be there for you, and we'll guide you through it.
On air and online at local15tv.com or on Facebook and Twitter for every single update.
And we thank you for joining us for this Local 15 News special presentation of Surviving the Storm.